Bleach features a fascinating cast and no two characters are the same. This is especially the case for the pairing of Urahara and Mayuri. Urahara was a once respected member of the Gotei 13, having founded the Soul Society's Research and Development Institute, while on the other hand his successor Mayuri went on to grow and cultivate Urahara's scientific endeavors, but in his own sick and twisted way. In this video I want to compare and contrast the personalities and methodologies of Urahara and Mayuri. I will be discussing their differences and their shocking similarities. In a video that I have dubbed the Battle of the Scientists, we will once and for all decide who is the better man of science. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. During the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, we see the first chronological appearance of Mayuri. Urahara, who was the captain of the 12th Division at the time, had visited Mayuri in his cell and had offered him a position as the second in command of his newly founded Research and Development Institute. We know he agreed to this request and would become the third-seated officer of the 12th Division. He worked under Urahara for at least 9 years, and later would go on to become a captain after the second seat Hiyori was forcibly holified and Urahara was exiled from the Soul Society. We don't know the reason why Mayuri was imprisoned, but we can assume that the Central 46 were afraid of his potential and were concerned that he would pose a threat to the Gotei 13 in the future. Whatever the case, Urahara was aware of Mayuri's genius and had gone out of his way to recruit him. Mayuri had only agreed to Urahara's request after he had told him that if anything were to happen to him, then he would inherit everything that Urahara has, which we know had turned out to be the case, as Mayuri would become the captain of the 12th Division and the head of the Research and Development Institute. Urahara and Mayuri share a passion for scientific advancement and inventing useful tools that will aid the Soul Society. Their approaches for achieving these goals are very different, and this is because of their clashing personalities. Urahara is relaxed and carefree, and he does not take himself too seriously, which helps him to come across as more humble and down to earth. While being the smartest character within the Bleach universe, you will never hear Urahara admit to this fact. He has a playful nature and loves to joke around and liven up the mood with banter. Despite this wholesome first impression that he gives off, there is a cunning side to his character, which is only seen when the situation calls for it. The contrast between these two sides of his personality are so jarring that some would even call it deceptive. There definitely is a lot more to this humble candy store owner than he would lead you to believe. Mayuri, on the other hand, is more upfront and consistent with his personality. He fits the description of a mad scientist completely, while Urahara feels like the stereotypical messy and unorganized genius. Mayuri is less sympathetic and kind in comparison to Urahara. He is known to take pleasure in the suffering of others, and has proven to be cruel through how he believes that any living being is a specimen worthy of his research. While Urahara cared a great deal for his underlings, Mayuri didn't hesitate to self-destruct his subordinates against their wishes. He believed that their sacrifice was necessary as long as he could capture Uryu and Orihime. While Mayuri was more ruthless and self-centered in his earlier appearances, we do see that he partially tames this side of his character down during the 1000 Year Blood War arc. While helping the Gotei 13, he still manages to conduct experiments even on his own comrades, through how he tests different drugs on the zombified Hitsugaya, stating that it's for the sake of the Serite. While Urahara was the lead of the Research and Development Institute, he had invented several key items that impacted the world of Bleach. He focused his efforts on Gigai technology, which is an artificial body that can be used to stabilize broken souls and to restore their energy. For example, how Rukia was in a Gigai to restore her powers at the start of the series. During his tenure as a captain, we also know that he had developed a cloak that could conceal one's Reiatsu. He had used this to sneak up on Aizen while he was holifying several Shinigami. Even before becoming a captain, he had invented the Tenshintai, a human-sized doll that can force a Zanpakuto spirit to manifest into the real world. This object was used by Urahara and later Ichigo to attain Bankai in 3 days or less. Typically, attaining Bankai requires a minimum of 10 years of training, but Urahara was able to overcome this restriction thanks to his invention. We can see that Urahara had focused his efforts on various different fields and excelled in innovations and making useful items that would aid the Shinigami in their day-to-day activities. We learned that he continued to advance the technology found within within the Soul Society during the New Breeds from Hell chapter, released in August of 2021. He was able to bring televisions to the Soul Society that can broadcast channels from the human world, as well as updating the soul pages that Shinigami use so that they resemble modern-day smartphones, as demonstrated by Renji, who FaceTimes Ichigo using his updated soul pager. I love that Urahara is working closely with the Research and Development Institute once again, but I wonder how Mayuri feels about all of this. And speaking of Mayuri, let's speak about his time as the captain of the 12th Division and his very different approach to running the division and the Research and Development Institute. Mayuri's inventions are less of the technical kind and are more related to biological matter. One of the earliest inventions that we see are his flesh bombs, which he had covertly implanted into the bodies of his subordinates, and he had remotely detonated the bombs, which we learned use up all of the body in order to cause serious damage to the surroundings. We are made aware that Mayuri had conducted experiments on several races, most notably the Quincy. The results of these experiments led him to conclude that he had learnt everything that there is to know about the Quincy race. On the other hand, we never quite saw Urahara dissect and analyze corpses, but Mayuri seems to have a fascination with this. We see this firsthand when he becomes intrigued by Orihime's powers and expresses his desire to experiment on her. Mayuri was also able to invent flesh-healing medicine, a serum that he often uses to regrow his limbs and to heal less severe injuries, like those that were sustained by Uryu and Renji during their battle against Xyloporo. Now, the key focus of Mayuri's efforts within the Research and Development Institute appear to have been towards his daughter Nemu Kurotsuchi, who he has created thanks to his extensive study of specializing Gigai combined with his work on mod souls. Mayuri is a master of creating Gigai and modifying souls, and this is proven by how Nemu can withstand fatal injuries, survive getting poisoned, and even having her body drained of its nutrients. During the New Breeds from Hell chapter, Mayuri interrupted Rukia and Renji when they were explaining how Urahara has been helping the 12th Division. It seems as though Mayuri has no choice but to accept Urahara working with him again. He complains that Urahara doesn't understand the concept of inventing items that fit the aesthetic of the Serete, stating that he doesn't have good taste. We then learn of a new invention created by Mayuri, which allows him to create a hologram of himself via a bug-shaped projector. While being a pretty cool creation, I don't think it has anything on Reishi TVs and smartphones. Now, these two characters have very different strengths and abilities. Urahara has mastered swordsmanship and is regarded as a Kido, Shumpo, and Hakuda master. His Zanbakudo Benihime is one of the most powerful within the Gotei 13. His Shikai allows him to generate and manipulate red-colored energy, which he uses for several techniques. The ability Scream Benihime creates blasts of red energy that he fires at his opponents, and his power Blood Mist Shield sees Urahara manipulate the red energy to create a barrier in front of him so that he can defend himself. And most importantly, his Bankai Kanonberaki Benihime Aratame takes the form of a giant towering woman with long black hair. The power of his Bankai allows him to restructure anything that it touches. It can dissect an opponent as long as they are within his range. He can also use his Bankai to restructure anything, allowing him to heal any injuries, like when he had restructured his eyes to restore his vision. His restructuring can also enhance and optimize his body parts, like when he had strengthened his arm in order to overpower Askin. Urahara's Bankai involves cutting something up and stitching it back together. Now, the applications of this power are endless, and it results in Urahara having one of the most broken Bankais within Bleach. Mayuri Zanbakudo, on the other hand, Ashisogi Jizo, is not as straightforward, however. Upon activating his Shikai, his blade transforms into 3 pointed blades that are shaped after snakes. This snake design complements his Shikai's ability, which is to poison the opponent with a paralyzing venom, which is administered after they are stabbed. The poison causes paralysis, but it does not cause numbness, which typically occurs with paralysis. Now, this is by design, as Mayuri wants his victims to still be able to feel pain in any area of the body, even if it has been paralyzed. His Bankai Konjiki Ashisogi Jizo creates a giant creature that produces poisonous gas that spreads quickly, and it is difficult to avoid. Mayuri and Nemu are immune to the poison, but for anyone else it is fatal. Mayuri is able to constantly change the poison so that his opponents cannot develop immunity to it. Even if the poison isn't inhaled, it can still enter into the body through the skin. During the 1000-Year Blood War arc, we saw a modified form of his Bankai, as the creature takes up the form of a giant purple baby wearing golden fabric. This purple creature can create modified versions of Mayuri's ordinary Bankai with information that he provides to it, and this allows Mayuri to counter specific techniques of an opponent. It is said that if Mayuri and Urahara were to ever battle each other, it would be a squash match, with Urahara easily taking the win. I can't say that I disagree with this popular opinion. Urahara is an individual who always has a trick up his sleeve. He is the type to have a plan even if he has done no preparation prior to a battle. This is credited to his cunning nature and invaluable intellect, and this is the reason why Urahara was dubbed as one of the 5 great war potentials by Yhwach, because of his tendency to come up with the most unpredictable countermeasures to any scenario that is presented to him. On the other hand, Mayuri has demonstrated that he requires time to prepare for an encounter, and he isn't as able to think as quickly on his feet like Urahara is. He found himself struggling against Uryu during the Soul Society arc when he was squashed by his Let Steal ability, and during the 1000-Year Blood War arc when he was facing off against Pernida and his power compulsory. Both of these scenarios involve Mayuri being unprepared and facing abilities that were unaccounted for, and had left him with little time to come up with the right countermeasures. These instances are contrasted against his battle with Xyloporo, where he was able to dominate his foe thanks to the surveillance device that he had placed on Uryu. Before arriving onto the battlefield, he had all of the prep time that he needed to utterly destroy the Espada. Meanwhile, Urahara can come up with a plan on the spot, while Mayuri is the type he needs to have prepared a backup plan in case things don't go his way. Kisuke, I'm never caught with my pants down Urahara would definitely be able to adapt and overcome to any situation in comparison to Mayuri. And also, did I forget to mention that Urahara has complete mastery over Kido, a rare feat that only the likes of Aizen could challenge. So yeah, I think that Mayuri would have a difficult time trying to beat Urahara. While holding the same positions within the Gotei 13, these two characters have two completely different approaches and sets of skills. Urahara is an all-rounder. He is an excellent fighter and a master at several arts, while excelling as a talented scientist. Mayuri, on the other hand, has only ever shown proficiency for scientific work and advancements in his own abilities via his research. The Battle of the Scientists is a pretty easy one to conclude on. I believe that Urahara is and always has been the better scientist, and he would not have any difficulty in defeating Mayuri, so long as Mayuri isn't given time to prepare for that encounter and he doesn't learn about Urahara's Bankai ability. Now, we are at the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you think about the comparison between Urahara and Mayuri? Do you agree with me that Urahara is stronger than Mayuri, and he was a better leader of the 12th Division and the Research and Development Institute? I'd love to know all of your thoughts, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. I've really enjoyed making this video, and I'd love to know what other characters you want to see me compare and contrast next. So definitely leave your suggestions in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.